I'm really not a cynic, guys, but I have been around the block a few times. I'll be honest with you. And I know you guys are seeing what I'm seeing. And if you're not, drop me some comments down below. But we got a lot of things going on, so we've got the railroad union crisis. Railroad workers are threatening to strike. We have an update on this railroad strike as of a couple hours ago. I'm going to share that information with you guys in this video. But I want to look at a few different things. So we're looking at food shortages. Potentially, at least we've been warned about food shortages. I'm not seeing food shortages in my area. I don't know if you guys are, but we are seeing a lot of droughts. We're seeing a fertilizer shortage. We're not yet seeing the end result of many of these different crises and catastrophes that are taking place across the country and around the world, such as drought, impacting farmers' ability to yield an adequate amount of crops. Overseas, in terms of grain import, we're seeing record prices for gas, even though gas prices have come down quite a bit. We've even heard from the Biden administration that student loans would be forgiven. Now, there's a lot of things that are going on right now, and I'm going to try to keep this to be a short video because I do have to run. But let's look at this. Let's look at the railroad union situation right now, right? Now, if you guys had seen my previous video, if you've seen Kevin's previous video, we indicated that there was roughly 72 hours from the last update for when railroads were preparing to shut down. The railroad companies, even to this day, are actually preparing to shut down. In fact, even the Biden administration was implementing contingency plans in preparation for the impending shutdown of multiple railroads, to the tune of roughly 70,000 railroad workers could literally have been walking off the jobs. And this would have shut down about 7,000 different railroads. And we're talking about railroad companies such being impacted by this to the extent of Amtrak, railroad companies to the extent of Norfolk Southern, and CSX. Who else is out there? BNSF, Berkshire Hathaway, Berkshire Hathaway's company, essentially, which is ultimately backed by the world famous Warren Buffett. Now, today, we got some new news coming out regarding the railroad strike. Now, it says here that the freight rail companies and unions representing tens of thousands of workers have reached a tentative agreement to avoid what would have been an economically damaging strike, a relief for American businesses and consumers, and a win for President Biden, whose administration helped broker the deal. Now, let's just take a second for it. Let's just look at this for a second. So we've gotten to the point, this is almost like, one of those movies where they're attempting to disable a bomb, and there's like 4 seconds left, and all of a sudden the hero of the movie shows up and is able to disable this bomb, and it doesn't explode, and everyone is saved, and everybody's like, phew, and it's almost like it's like what's happening right now. So the Biden administration has this tentative deal in place right now, which buys the railroad companies a little bit of time. Now, this is a tentative agreement. This is not a permanent agreement. The railroad workers are not happy. In my opinion, they're still very likely to be able to have the motivation to walk off the job, because a tentative deal in place hasn't been signed by the railroad workers yet. Now, this breakthrough was announced by Mr. Biden earlier this morning after late night talks with his labor secretary. Now, in remarks at the White House on, this morning, Biden basically was bragging about this agreement that was reached, saying that it was a positive for both the workers and the companies alike, and that this agreement is a big win for America. Now, I'm not going to deny that, it's not a positive for America. I mean, it's not as if we need additional supply chain problems. We don't need that. However, this is a clear indication of workers, employees, contractors, 1099 workers, whatever your employment status is, employees getting the short end of the stick. Corporate, high-level CEOs, C-suite executives not being willing to take care of the employees to the extent that employees need to be taken care of. Now, the railroad workers, they're basically upset. They're pissed off because there's been decades upon decades of underpay, unsafe work conditions, less than desirable benefits. The list goes on and on and on. However, this is the first time that we've gotten to a point. Well, there was actually a massive strike. There was a massive railroad strike that happened about, 50 years ago. But this would have been the second largest railroad union driven strike that we've seen in quite some time. Now, this agreement, it now heads to union members to, for a ratification vote, which is basically a standard procedure in labor talks. But again, the workers have agreed not to strike so far, but not all of the employees have actually signed off on this thing. Now, let's keep in mind what's going on here. We've got midterm elections right around the corner. Midterm elections are right around the corner, right? So how would it look for the current administration to allow a massive strike to happen on his watch and right in front of midterm elections? This would not be this would certainly be frowned upon, to say the least, right? So you've got that. So there's basically, he diffused things just before things went really, really bad. But in my opinion, this is only buying time. And what's really going on here? Like the details that have been revealed is that employees, okay, they may receive up to a 24% raise. Let's see what really happens. Let's see what really gets ironed out once the official details come out. These are all preliminary bits and pieces of information that they've allowed to be leaked out and shared with the public. Now, this particular deal, it was praised by both the freight companies and the union leadership, reflecting a key compromise on issues of improved working conditions for railroad workers, which has pretty much been the biggest sticking point in talks. Now, unions, they won the right to retain medical appointments without penalty, among other measures that were meant to ease the burdens of essentially rigorous scheduling. Many of the employees, the railroad workers, they were complaining about, how sometimes they can't even go home for 8, 9, 10 days at a time. And based on the points system, from what I understand, this points-based system for the railroad workers, it would essentially penalize them for taking time off, for taking care of their health and, things like that. So that doesn't sound all that fair to me, but you guys can be the judge of that. Now, let's talk about these student loans for a second, right? So the current administration touted we're going to provide $10,000 in student loan forgiveness, right? However, there's a big question mark about the legality of approving $10,000 in student loan forgiveness. What is this actually saying for those who paid off their student loans, who worked second jobs, who created side hustles, who created small businesses, took gig work, did things like, Uber, or started affiliate marketing businesses, or whatever the case is? They mowed grass, they did whatever they needed to do to pay off their student loans that they signed up for. What does it say for the morale for people who bent over backwards to make sure that they maintain good credit? They wanted to keep their credit score high. They didn't want to allow a student loan default to impact their credit and their good name. If you hand $10,000 in student loan payments, or essentially $10,000 in checks for student loans to wipe out student loan debt, what is this saying to those who actually follow the rules, so to speak, or those who said, hey, I'm not even going to take out student loans. I'm going to pay cash for school. I'm going to work my way through school. This doesn't really promote a very good financial morale for the country, in my opinion, when you just hand out $10,000 in student loans. Now, it's cool for those who really needed the help, and I'm not against helping anyone out, but I'm just saying, look at what some of the additional unintended consequences can end up yielding. Now, what would be fair? Would it be fair to eliminate $10,000 worth of debt in other areas? Let's just say, what about the Americans that would not qualify for $10,000 in student loan debt because they don't have any student loans? How about knocking down a mortgage payment, or knocking down a mortgage balance by reducing it by $10,000? How about taking someone's credit card debt and eliminating that by $10,000? How about reducing someone's car payment debt or car loan debt by $10,000, or handing a check to each and every single American who didn't qualify for student loan forgiveness, handing them a $10,000 check? Is that the answer? I'm not saying what is or what isn't. I'm just looking at, how do you make this thing fair? Now, here's another thing that I want you guys to consider. With the elections coming up, whether or not student loans are actually forgiven won't actually probably be known until sometime after January of 2023. So what's interesting here is the current administration is being allowed to market this student loan debt forgiveness, even though checks haven't actually been written. So it may actually be good publicity to say that the student loans will be forgiven, but if they're not forgiven, you won't know until after you voted. So I just think this is a little interesting. And I'm not trying to sway anyone from voting, however you want to vote. I personally, I don't care how you vote. Vote intelligently, make logical decisions, but I'm not trying to steer you one way or the other. I'm just looking at this logically. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the stock market. We saw the stock market crash by a good 1,000 points. I want to say it was 1,200 points at the lowest point on today's Thursday, Wednesday. I want to say it was Tuesday when the CPI numbers came out and inflation was sitting at 8.3%, which is still higher than the Fed was anticipated, and many economists were anticipating the CPI number to be at. And this is in spite of having record high rate hikes being implemented by none other than Fed Chair Jerome Powell. So what are we to expect during this next rate hike? Are we going to see another 75 basis point rate hike? A lot of people, a lot of other channels, a lot of economists said, hey, the Fed won't even go this far. I was hearing, the first rate hike started in March of this year, March of 2022, and that was 25 basis points. The next rate hike was 50 basis points. And I remember seeing all sorts of headlines, people saying, economists, people invested in the stock market, investors invested in the stock market, real estate investors saying, hey, the Fed's going to reverse course. They're not going to stand by their guns. They're not going to continue to raise interest rates to the rate that they are, to the extent that they are. And here we are seeing. So they went from 20, I think it was, if memory serves me correct, 25 basis points. Then the next rate hike was 50 basis points. Then what really shocked everyone was a 75 basis point rate hike, which we hadn't seen in like 40 years. And then back to back, they dropped another 75 basis point rate hike. Now, here we are, quite literally days out from the next Fed meeting, or when they're actually going to take action on moving this rate, this interest rate, the Fed rate, forward or backward. Now, in my opinion, I think that they're probably going to do another 75 basis point rate hike. But I think what's really entering the cards is perhaps a 100 point rate hike, 100 basis points rate hike. Now, what is this doing to the mortgage industry? What is this doing to the housing market? What is this doing for the labor markets? I mean, heck, Fed Chair Jerome Powell has already come out and told us that Americans will face some pain. Now, depending upon where you are economically within our financial system, pain will be felt differently. Pain will be felt sooner or later, depending upon where you are economically. So, this is not financial advice, but I've been through a number of different rough times, and I have found that financially speaking and economically speaking, it's almost like you're playing a game of Uno. You question yourself on, what do I do next? You don't want to panic. Now, I'm not saying you would panic during a game of Uno. Who does that, right? But, our lives are dependent on the decisions that we make. Our dependents, our kids, maybe some of you are taking care of older relatives or parents. The decisions we make with our money will largely dictate how well we survive this thing. And it's not just about survival, because ideally you want to thrive. So first thing I'm looking at is, well, okay, how much cash do I have coming in? Right? So, and number one, do I have enough to pay my expenses? So if I don't, and whether I do or I don't, I need to always be focused on increasing my income, because more income is 9 times out of 10, if not 99 times out of 100, is always a solution. So, and if you can do these, if you can do that plus reducing expenses, now you're really winning. And there's a lot of other tricks and hacks that I can share with you guys if you guys care about this, that can accelerate the speed of both of these things that I could share in a future video. If you guys care, you can let me know in the comments. You know how to reach me. Email is in the description down below. But if you can combine increasing your income and decreasing your expenses, you are exponentially putting yourself in a much better financial situation to be able to withstand what is coming our way. Now, I had a message that I shared not too long ago, and this particular individual, I think it was a viewer, had indicated that they're preparing for what is coming. And by preparing, he indicated that he is taking his extra money and paying down his mortgage. And while I commended his efforts, not knowing his full situation, in most cases, this is probably not the wisest thing to do. Number one, maybe I should share this with you guys in another video, because this is going to be another 20-minute explanation on that. So I'll save that one. But number one, and if you guys care, I can explain why this is probably not the wisest move. But what you need to be thinking about is being very, very strategic. What do I do with the cash that I have? Does it make more sense to save money and not pay down debt, especially if your payments aren't going to change? If you've got a fixed interest loan and you've got a fixed payment, does it make a lot of sense to pay down the principal, especially if your interest rate is low? Does it make a lot of sense to pay down your principal, or does it make more sense to stash your cash in the highest interest rate savings account that you can find? And right now, savings accounts are headed higher. I'm getting all sorts of letters in the mail talking about, hey, come to my bank, XYZ, whether it's Bank of America, Chase, Truist, Wells Fargo. I probably wouldn't go to Wells Fargo, but but whatever the case is, there's so many different banks that are hitting me up. Alliant Credit Union, and a lot of credit unions, by the way, have been reaching out saying how much higher their savings accounts are right now. So I might strongly consider stashing more cash into some form of a savings account, maybe a credit union. Because what this is going to do is going to buy you time. And right now, I feel like now is a good time to buy time if you don't have a good amount of cash stashed. So I'm looking to stockpile cash if I am the average American. Now, at the same time, this is not financial advice. And your strategy is largely dependent on your own individual situation. I can't advise you. I'm not a financial advisor, and I would advise you to speak with a financial advisor and consult with one to get financial advice. But at the same time, there's going to be a lot of opportunities coming out. There's going to be a lot of opportunities in the stock market. I know a lot of channels, a lot of people don't trust the stock market, and that's fine. I'm not trying to tell anyone to invest in the stock market. I'm just saying I'm looking for deals in all markets. I'm looking for deals in real estate. I'm looking for deals in the stock market. I'm looking for deals in any particular asset class that I believe in that has potential to be worth more in the future, or at least hedge future losses. And as quiet as it's kept, I hate using that phrase sometimes, but as quiet as it's kept, you can make money in the stock market even when the stock market is crashing. So that is possible to do. But more importantly, and generally with a higher yield of, there was a wasp flying my way. I almost freaked out. I'm not very good with bugs. But anyway, the yield would generally be better in terms of effort versus return on investment, by increasing your income. Because generally speaking, by you increasing your income, you're going to be able to out earn any yield on any investment that you can probably make. So that's probably going to be my main focus for the average person. Again, this is not financial advice. And the reason I say that is because, generally speaking, let's just assume that your rate of return is, say, around 10%. If your rate of return is 10% on an average investment, that would mean that you would need to have so much invested to be able to have a yield in your investment that's greater than how much income that you can earn on your own steam. And so this is why boosting your income is generally going to have a higher reward than focusing on what to invest in today. So unless you, until you hit really big numbers, a 10% return is not going to yield enough, or it's not going to overshadow how much you could bring in terms of income on your own steam. I hope that makes sense. I may need to just kind of have a separate video for that. But anyway, let me get back on topic. So let's talk about these mortgage rates briefly. I just saw that mortgage rates are hitting 6%. They're hitting mid sixes. Now, keep in mind, this is for A grade credit. This is for prime credit situations. Not everyone's going to have prime situations. Not everyone's going to have prime credit. Here's another thing. If you don't have prime credit, what are you looking at? If 6%, if a fixed rate mortgage at, 740 plus credit score with a 20% down payment is going to give you around 6%. Well, what's happening for those who don't have prime credit? These people are looking at 6.8%, 7% interest rates. So what is this doing to the housing market? We're already seeing it, We're seeing it. Houses are sitting on the market so much longer. Days on the market has increased drastically. New mortgage applications has declined tremendously. And so this is going to lead to further layoffs, further economic woes and worries for the average American. Just think about how many industries are impacted when real estate declines in volume. Okay, and just throwing out a few different positions that are on the top of my head, but there's far more than I'm about to list. Obviously, real estate agents. Now, last I checked, there are several million licensed real estate agents in America right now. And just think about how many people will be impacted by this. So if you've got millions of real estate agents who are not closing anywhere near how many deals that they previously were closing, that's going to be an immediate impact. And if prices start declining on real estate agents' incomes are based on how many sales they do, and they're earning a percentage on the commission based on the price of the transaction. So if the transaction values and the transaction prices go down, in other words, if real estate prices go down, real estate agents are basically taking an income hit. So they're going to make less money per house, and when the volume goes down, they're making fewer sales. So you're getting fewer sales, and for every sale you do make, you're getting paid less for it if housing prices continue to go down. Now, with the CPI numbers that have come out recently, there's really no reason for me to think that Jerome Powell and the Fed is going to let off the gas in terms of raising interest rates. It just wouldn't make any sense at this time. So this is a sweeping problem, and it won't stop there. So this is also going to affect the mortgage bankers. Mortgage bankers are probably going to be next to be let go. We're already hearing layoffs from multiple different real estate firms. You've got Redfin, who has announced layoffs. We've heard from, I want to say we heard from Zillow announcing layoffs. There's so many different companies announcing layoffs. Goldman Sachs is announcing layoffs. We've heard from Walmart announcing layoffs. Layoffs are coming left and right. And the consumer confidence is literally it's slowing down. It's not at a standstill. It's not at a complete halt. It is at a standstill. I was at Lowe's the other day, and we were in the appliance section. We're actually purchasing a new dishwasher. And I talked to the Lowe's person, and I asked him, I said, "Hey, how's business?" And this is boots on the ground. This is coming directly from Lowe's employee. And so this is what a Lowe's employee told me. He told me that they had seen a bit of a reduction in sales. And he worked in the appliance department. I don't know how overall Lowe's did. I don't know how different Lowe's stores are doing. So all I know is from what this one employee inside of this one Lowe's store inside of the appliance department has told me. He said that he had seen a bit of a reduction in volume of appliance sales. However, they ran a Labor Day sale and they did like $1 million over the weekend. Now, I just asked him, I said, hey, is that really good? And he said, yes, that is a very good turnout for just a weekend. Now, with that being said, that tells me a couple of things. Number one, Lowe's probably made less money per unit by running a sale because they reduced their prices. They ran a number of different promotions. I think they ran something like, well, what we benefited from is, I think if you spent more than $599, you got a rebate for the cost of your installation, your delivery, and possibly installation. It was like $140 roughly rebate that we're going to be able to qualify for once they install it. So they moved more units, but they likely made less money per unit. And so that may work out for them in their benefit, especially as many retailers have indicated recently how much overstock that they now have. So I'm pretty sure that that was a win-win. Hopefully that didn't equate to a loss for the business as they attempted to move a lot of inventory in a short period of time. But what this also told me is that Americans have money, whether they have credit or they have cash. Americans have money. They could have opened up a Lowe's credit card. They may have used their Visa, MasterCard, their American Express card, whatever card or cash. The point is according to this employee at Lowe's, people came out to shop. So what this tells me, and this is an anecdotal situation, but what this tells me is that Americans have cash, but Americans are getting smarter and they're preparing for what is coming. They're camping out and waiting for deals. They're being real smart with the decisions that they make. There's no more of this throwing a house on the market and it's not all that nice, but yet you've got 30 people lining up for the first day of the showing or for open houses, right? No more of this, these bidding wars. Now, if anything, you're seeing bidding wars for rental properties. Good luck finding a rental property in some markets. Many renters have indicated on different forums and boards, and I'm hearing it too, because I got friends in the real estate market, friends in the real estate industry, real estate agents, apartment locators that are telling me that renters are now in a situation because people who used to be on the market to buy homes, they're not buying houses because either they no longer qualify for the mortgages or they no longer are willing to pay what it now costs to purchase a home because the interest rates have gone up, or a combination of the interest rates going up on the mortgages and also the home property value is not coming down to a point where they're willing to pay for it, that they've literally just taken themselves off the market. And so you now have this massive influx of additional renters that are looking to rent. Well, what this did was it drove up demand for rental properties. And so now renters in some markets are literally trying to outbid another renter just to be able to have a place to live. So this can create a homelessness situation. This could impact the current state of homelessness here in America. So this is a lot bigger than what is being discussed. And I have a feeling that come January, things are going to get a lot worse. Once we get past this midterm elections, I feel like a lot of the can kicking down the road there's going to be a lot more exposure to what's really happening, and they're not going to be able to hide it too much longer. That's all I can say. I really didn't want to make this video so long, but there's a lot of things that are going on right now. There's a lot of topics that I want to share with you guys. I do need to run, but drop me some comments down below. Let me know what you guys are thinking. Let me know what you guys want me to cover in future videos. Also, let me know how you guys are preparing for what is coming down the pipeline. Inflation, food shortages, prepare for food shortages going forward, recession, potential job loss, railroad strikes still imminent? Let me know what you guys are thinking right now. Drop me some comments, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.